have a very brief, I will have a very brief introduction to our project and the agenda of today. You should be able to see it in the presentation mode right now. Okay. So as you know, this is the closing event for our Implement workshop series. With this final conference, we want to present a summary of the main takeaways we collected during the 4 sectorial workshops. And we reached more than 150 stakeholders. We hosted 10 keynote speakers, and it resulted in a broad discussion about the strengths and weaknesses of the policy options that we provided, as well as we collected the possible policy opportunities and approach. You will hear them in detail in a while. And we also would like to present an overview of our methods and tools that we developed as the monitoring framework. And finally, we will introduce our key outcomes from the case study analysis that we conducted so far. And what we expect from this conference is threefold. We want to provide actionable knowledge in terms of policy options to boost the transition. We want to collect diverse stakeholder perspectives to shape and fine-tune our methods and tools. The aim is to better respond to stakeholders' needs. And finally, we want to fine-tune our policy recommendations to pave the way for future policy developments at regional, national, and the European level. And so this is the opening session. Later on, we will hear from our keynote speakers that I will introduce very briefly. Then we will see the results, starting with the presentation of collection method that we adopted during the policy instrument literature review. And then we will see sectorial outputs from our sectorial workshops. Then we will introduce launch, let's say, and present the Sustrack monitoring tool. Then we will present the case study. So the closing remarks will be done at the end. And for the ones who are joining our Sustrack events for the first time, this is going to be a very quick introduction. Sustrack is a coordination and support action. We are running for the last year today, so this year. So this is going to be our overall output providing year. And we aim at assessing the impacts of the linear as well as the circular bioeconomy. We want to support policymakers to develop sustainable pathways, replacing fossil and carbon-intensive systems with sustainable, circular, and bio-based ones. And if you haven't done so, please feel free to join our stakeholder community, visiting our website, the social media channels that we use very actively to communicate our results and to share the upcoming events. And we have some specific objectives as well, apart from the main objectives that I just introduced. So we aimed at identifying, assessing, and prioritizing the limits and barriers of this transition that we already published in our website. We are in the development phase of knowledge and tools for monitoring and assessing the impacts. This is going to be also launched today and shared with you. And we are adopting a case study approach that you know that we organize these 4 workshops for construction, chemicals, textiles, and plastics. And this is a part of the 3rd specific objective, the assessment of all impacts in for the sustainable transition. And we are also using a system dynamic approach in order to create, simulate, and interpret a variety of scenarios for the transition, which is almost completed. So we are fine-tuning the final outputs of these simulation activities. And finally, in the scope of also these conferences, we want to identify policy priorities, define corresponding policy actions, and provide recommendations. So this is a very brief introduction, let's say in a nutshell, and I don't want to take more time, but leave the floor to our keynote speakers, starting with Yannis. I will stop sharing my screen, and if he can share his screen, in the meantime, I'm going to introduce him very briefly. Is it fine for you, Yannis? We don't hear you, maybe you're muted. Okay. Do you hear us, Yannis?
Now, do you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
we do. Perfect.
And you see my screen also or not?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell.
Yes. In the meantime, I'll just introduce you very briefly. So Yanis Kougelis is a policy officer in bioeconomy at the European Commission, DG, Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship, and SMEs. He has worked for the EU in various roles, mostly for environmental policy and science. First, he started working on circular economy, sustainable production, and environmental issues. Later, he implemented the Horizon Europe program in areas like bioeconomy, environment, and health. By education, he is a chemist with a master's degree in environmental management and a PhD in sustainability engineering. He has intensive international experience, and we look forward to hear from him his presentation of From Vision to Implementation series of today. So Yanis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for the invitation. I'm happy to present a snapshot of the policy developments in the area of bio-based products and biotechnology. I will try to be brief. I will not allow me not to spend all the information, not to spend time to present all the information that is on the slides, but I put the information so that you have it as a reference. So first, why to to promote bio-based products? We see that the bio-based products can help us to defossilize, to meet climate neutrality targets, and also to support EU autonomy and security. On top of that, the value chain of bio-based products is also a job intensive by value chain, which means that we have also many jobs in this area. About biotechnology, biotechnology, as you probably well know, it is an area where the competitiveness is important, and we have, for many reasons, relying on competitiveness and strengthening EU security to invest on biotechnology. Now I will try to give an overview on an overview on the different policy developments. First of all, the most relevant communication of last year is on biotechnology and biomanufacturing, where we set the scene, and we have also prepared the grounds and on the next items that will come, which is in the new commission. The head of the policy developments is happening in bioeconomy strategy. But beyond this, we have also the life sciences strategy. We have the clean industrial deal, which is also a strategy and overarching communication. And we have three legislative acts, the Biotech Act, the Industry Decarbonization Accelerator Act, and the Circular Economy Act. As you can see that there are so many initiatives that are related to bio-based products and biotechnology that give us an exciting time as to discuss policy making. And to navigate, of course, is a bit more difficult. First of all, let's see what has been published in the communication for building the future with nature, boosting biotechnology, biomanufacturing. We refer on the need of stimulating the market demand. The Commission is committed to conduct an in-depth impact assessment feasibility study on setting minimum bio-based content requirements in different product groups, and also to investigate other options for increasing market uptake of bio-based products, like labeling of them. On top of that, we have a clear reference to work on standards on bio-based products and to continue encouraging the elaboration update of the European standards in biotechnology, also in biomanufacturing. Complementary to that, we are reviewing the environmental assessment methods of fossil-based and bio-based products under the product environmental footprint methodologies, and we will review the work there in order to better reflect the benefits and make a fair comparison of bio-based products related to non-bio-based or fossil-based products. Now in the new commission, the first communication that has been published in the end of February is the Clean Industrial Deal, where we have a clear reference to the content of the bioeconomy strategy, where we refer that it will tap the significant growth potential of bio-based materials, substituting fossil-based materials. And where we also indicate that the bioeconomy strategy will have a sectorial plan on priorities for manufacturing and used biomaterials. Also in the Clean Industrial Deal, we have a clear reference about the Circular Economy Act, which will mandate the use of new raw material sources like recycled and bio-based materials to substitute virgin fossil materials, for example, in plastics. The life sciences strategy now, this strategy is now under preparation. It is planned for the end of this year, and it is broader than bioeconomy, and it looks more on driving innovation biotechnology and holds great potential across sectors. And as a scope, the life science strategy covers pharma, food, and non-food aspects. And in the life sciences strategy, we see important to unlock high-value technologies in support of green and digital transitions. This has been published in the Competitiveness Compass, which was in January. And we have also the reference there published in the political guidelines of the Commission, which were published in the summer. Now about the bioeconomy strategy. The bioeconomy strategy runs in parallel, will be published in parallel of the life science strategy, will be published in the end of this year, 2025, and will look on how to position the EU in the rapidly expanding bioeconomy market with a significant growth potential in bio-based materials, manufacturing, biochemicals, and agri-biotech sectors, and to reduce reliance of fossil fuels and improve the economic perspectives of our rural areas. On the bioeconomy strategy, we will also promote the more circular and sustainable production, use, and consumption of biological resources. This is the commitment done in the political guidelines, and I can confirm that the circularity element will be very strongly reflected within the bioeconomy strategy, where we speak about a circular bioeconomy. The identified important aspects to tackle within the bioeconomy strategy are the following. So the first pillar will be that we are discussing is to create an efficient demand for more value from less resources. On a second level, we will look how to bring from lab to fab the biosolutions in the market and to scale up. Also, we will look on how to ensure sustainability, to have a sustainable sourced biomass supply, and to have a hierarchy of biomass uses, so the cascading principle. And a fourth pillar will be the green diplomacy and to position in a global environment the European bioeconomy. Now, on the legislative acts, the Biotech Act first. This is planned for the end of 2026. In the Biotech Act, we have also many elements which are not on bio-based on materials. And the Biotech Act will provide a forward-looking framework conducive to innovation in areas like health. And also we'll look a lot on biotechnology, how the biotechnology can bring new competitiveness to the market and to the economy. The focus, I said, is on biotechnology, and the reason for this is competitiveness, security, and sustainability. On the Circular Economy Act, which is also planned for the end of 2020, excuse me, here is a mistake, it's the end of 2026. This will look on a single market for waste, secondary and usable materials. It will serve to catalyze investment in recycling capacity and encourage EU industry effectively substitute virgin materials. It will have measures which will be complementary and to facilitate the rolling out of the eco-design, sustainable products regulation. And it will look to move away from fossil materials, which is vital to mandate the use of new raw material sources like recycled and bio-based materials in order to substitute fossil, in example, in the plastics. Here is the last slide where it gives a more schematic overview of the different actions. We have the bioeconomy strategy, strongly linked to the life science strategy, which is broader as this includes also pharma and health, and it's more looking on innovation and on liberating the potential of biotechnology. We have the Biotech Act, which is tightly linked with the life science strategy, but also with the bioeconomy, and the Circular Economy Act and the Clean Industrial Deal, which are more on the industrial dimension of these areas. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any question from you.
Thank you very much for setting the new policy landscape, let's say, and also thank you for sticking the time allocated to you. So I would love to also mention that we would be happy to have questions and comments in the chat in the meantime that we are running for the next presentation. Mario, do you prefer sharing your screen?
I try, okay?
Okay, so in the meantime, I'll introduce you, but if you have any problems, we can jump in without a problem. Okay, so Mario Bonacorso is the director of SPRING, the Italian Circular Bioeconomy Cluster, since 2021. Having graduated in politics from the University of Milan, he went on to specialize in the history of European integration at the University of Aachen. Journalist and blogger, in 2012, he founded Il Bioeconomista, the first bioeconomy blog, now considered the world's most authoritative bioeconomy blog. He has award-winning books published in Italian and English, and I look forward to hear his presentation, how the EU can lead in circular bioeconomy. So let's see if the presentation works.
What kind of box I have to open? Because I have documents here.
You can select directly application windows that is opening at the bottom of your page. When you click share screen, either you can share entire, yes. Now we are, who is sharing? Yes, I think you are sharing your Mira board, but you should switch to your presentation or.
I think just to save time that it would be better if you can share my presentation that I have.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much and sorry
You're welcome.
for this.
Valentina, can you do it or should I do it?
I can do it, just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, so before I start, let me thank you for your kind invitation. It's my pleasure to be here just to share some views of our cluster, which is the Italian Circular Bioeconomy Cluster. SPRING is an acronym, means Sustainable Processes and Resources for Innovation and National Growth. We bring together approximately 170 associates from academia, universities, private and public research centers, small, medium enterprises, big corporations, not only located in Italy, because we have also as associates companies located in the US or in other countries of Europe. Just to give you a few examples, Neste located in Finland, or the bio-based Europe pilot plant located in Belgium. We have also as associates farmer associations, business associations, Coldiretti and Confagricoltura, which are the main farmer associations based in Italy, are two our associates, then regional clusters, and also companies like utilities. So the title of my presentation is very ambitious, but we are convinced that we are sure that the EU can lead in the circular bioeconomy because we have an historical leadership in this field. Also in Italy, we can say that we invented the bioeconomy in the 80s within the Monte Edison group when Raul Gardini launched the research centers focused on bioplastics, launching in Novamont, which was in his view the new Monte Edison. So the companies able to face all the challenges of the third millennium related with the activity of the chemical industry being more sustainable. So how can EU lead in the circular bioeconomy from our point of view? So there are big opportunities for Europe related to the circular bioeconomy, and we know we have data on this presented by the Bio-Based Industries Consortium, the private part of the private and public partnership between the European Commission and the industry. So we know that the bioeconomy, you can skip and change the slides, is the next one. So we know that the bioeconomy in Europe is not a niche, it's the norm, it's about growth and jobs. And the turnover is very important. The last data that the BIC presented are very, very important, with 2.35 trillion euros in 2021 and over 60 million employees. As a spring, we present in Italy a report together with Intesa Sanpaolo, which is the Italian leading banking group, and the value only in Italy, according to this report, is the bioeconomy is worth approximately 440 billion euros with 2 million jobs. And in the EU4, this means Germany, France, Italy, and Spain, there is a turnover, value of production of 1,700 billion euros. These are very important data. So we know that the bioeconomy is for sure a reality, and that Europe is leading the way in this meta sector, but we need the policies. So the next slide. So we know also that is a great opportunity to create connection between agriculture and chemistry and industry. The bioeconomy is the connection between agriculture and chemistry. And we launched in Italy the bioplastic sector, the compostable bioplastic sector, which has a great use in the collection of organic wastes, and also to bring new substances to the soil, and also face the great challenge that we have not only in Southern Europe, but I think in all Europe, related to the protection of soil and also the protection of biodiversity. So we have to promote this field where the European Union has a leadership, and unfortunately we have a directive for single-use plastics that is not so in favor of compostable bioplastics. And this is a pity. We need a stable and current regulatory framework at European level. In many cases, we don't have it. So next slide. So talking about opportunities, for sure the bioeconomy, as all we know, is a great opportunity to decarbonize Europe, to decarbonize our industry. And so there are also in this field very important data. And all the carbonation policies at the European level has to consider the role of the bioeconomy. And also in this frame, it's a pity that the report of Mario Draghi for the competitiveness of Europe does not mention the role of bioeconomy. Also, even if it is focused on decarbonization policies. So we know that the circular bioeconomy is playing a big role also in this field, and this role must be recognized by the European Union and by all the policies implemented by the European Union and also all the member states. So next slide. So, but what we need to do is to strengthen the bioeconomy sector. We know that the European Commission will be presenting the new bioeconomy strategy probably during the Danish presidency of the Council of Europe in October, as the previous presentation told everybody. Next slide. But I think what is important is also in this bioeconomy to recognize the role of industrial biotechnology in the bioeconomy, and then to favor the implementation of new policies. One of these is the review of the NACE codes at the European level. NACE codes are the statistical classification of economic activities at the European level. There is not a bioeconomy, a NACE code for biorefineries or bio-based chemistry, just to give you an example. And this is important because we need to recognize the role, the specific role of the bio-based chemistry that is not the same of traditional chemistry. When Joe Biden presented the executive order biotechnology and biomanufacturing in 2022, then the US started to review their codes that are the NICE codes. You know, last Friday, Trump revoked this executive order, but they are still reviewing these codes because these are very important, not only from a statistical point of view, but we start from statistics in order to have new good policies to support the sector. And so NACE codes are crucial in terms of fiscal and administrative actions, and also in terms of taxonomy for sustainable finance. So it's a sort of conditio sine qua non to implement new policies, and we talk a lot also with Eurostat in order to have a new classification, and we are still working on this, which is very important from our point of view. And also the revocation of the executive order in the US by the Trump administration probably gives us new opportunities in Europe to attract more investments to our countries in order to support new biorefineries and new factories for the bioeconomy. I think that the time is now. So we used to talk a lot also as cluster. We organize many events, but I think it's time to move from lab to fab, but also from words to actions. It's time to deliver really, and 2025 is a very important year from the bioeconomy and for the new policies for decarbonization and defossilization at the European level. So next slide, just to, as I said, so it's important to recognize the contribution of bio-based product to decarbonizations. And so I think there are more, many data on this. And what we need also in this case is to have strategies, but then action plans, because the strategy is not enough. We have many strategies, probably too many strategies. Now it's time to have policies and to have action plan. In Italy, we presented last December within the Coordination National Group for Bioeconomy, set up within the Italian presidency of Council of Ministers, the implementation action plan. There are countries in Europe with a strategy without an action plan, and this is bad. But then we ask as cluster, because also the implementation action plans is not enough, we ask to set up a working group to to propose new policies for the bioeconomy, and also simplification of the policies already implemented, because in many cases we have also too many policies and we need simplification. Then, as you know, in the past, the European Commission put a cap for the first generation biofuel, and then so promoting investments in second generation biofuel, and then they stop also the investment in second generation biofuel that move abroad, and so they left Europe, and this is not good for the investments in our country, and I mean Europe as our country. So other point very important is to promote efficient system for the collection of organic waste. In this sector, Italy is a benchmark because we have a very good system of collection of organic wastes using the compostable bioplastics and then producing biofertilizers, then biogas, biomethane, but also there are now new research in order to produce new bioplastics. And this is important. I think we need to review the directive related to the single-use plastics, because also we are now creating 27 different markets at European level. We need a market, we need to support the demand, and we need more coherence between also the different markets. And also in this case, the report Draghi show us in a very good way how the 27 single markets are a big barrier for the implementation of all the policies, and specifically from our point of view for the bioeconomy. So next slide is, as I said, the need to develop a legislative framework promoting the bioproduct. There are a good potential not only for biofuels, biochemicals, but for many products produced using biomass. We need also to have a good map of the biomass present in Europe, and so we need also to favor the creation of value chain at local level. So my last slide is so focus on research and development activities in the bioeconomy. So for sure, we know that we are very good at research and innovation at the European level. What we need is to scale up and so to support the industrialization. I think this is very important. To promote the industrialization, we need to have a good collection of biomass, to have biomass, and I think it is important within the Biotech Act, within the Biotech Hub, within the bioeconomy strategy to recognize the role of the industrial biotechnology. Our perspective is that in Europe probably there is a focus on red biotechnology and other kind of biotechnology, not so a very important focus on industrial biotechnology, but industrial biotechnology are playing a very significant, relevant, crucial role in supporting the bioeconomy. So as cluster, you probably know, we launched it together with other 13 clusters at European level, the European Bioeconomy Clusters Alliance. This is a way to support the European Commission to implement policies that are good policies for the bioeconomy. Also, we want to start, and we think already, so as Europeans, we need to think as Europeans, we need to act as Europeans, because if not, 27 different markets and policy system are not so good to be competitive, and the bioeconomy is about competitiveness and it's about collaboration. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Mario. And thank you for providing the European perspective. Now I would like to dedicate a couple of minutes on the questions that are put in the chat, but I would love to give the floor to the people who raised the questions if they would love to take the occasion to raise their point, to make their question. I see that Simon has put a technical question on the calculation of greenhouse gas emissions. Would you like to say a couple of words on that? Or maybe I can just summarize very quickly. So the question goes like, depending on the sector of interest, the calculation of the emissions often works differently. So the chemical industry often uses product carbon footprint, while the fuel industry is bound by the requirements of the RED directive. For recycled materials, any kind of attribution is even more complicated depending on the life cycle scenario. So how will this be resolved in the future if more sustainable materials are to change sectors?
So if I can answer this question, not directly, but one of our proposal is also to change the LCA, because in many cases we have that fossil-based products are more sustainable than bio-based products. This is because we have a way to analyze the contribution to the decarbonization in a way that is not correct. So we need to change to review the nature codes, and there is also the need to change the LCA. And also in the US, they were starting also to change the life cycle assessment together with the nice codes. We don't know what is happening now with the new Trump administration, but what we know is that this is needed to make the circular bioeconomy happen, and this is sure.
Thank you. And Yanis, do you want to say a couple of words on this, or shall we move forward?
Regarding the life cycle assessment, as said, we have reflected on this. There are discussions ongoing, but we are in a good track to propose a modification of a change on how the bio-based content will be able to be assessed within the environmental footprint methods. And there we are confident that there will be a better reflection of the benefits of bio-based and the difference of the bio-based versus the fossil-based carbon. Unfortunately, I cannot share more than that because it's not published, but I'm confident that this will be well reflected.
Thank you. And there is also a comment on that saying that the life cycle assessment simulations must be a dynamic approach, including cost analysis approach and even the social aspects. I mean, now this is already a discussion that has been going on since a while. But I think we are, again, like on the good track, at least in the effort to make it happen in a fair way, let's say, to judge which product is more sustainable and circular. So for the sake of time, I would like to move on with our agenda, but please share your concerns or questions or comments still in the chat window. So now we will move forward with the presentation of methods that we use to collect the information for our policy instruments. I leave the floor to my colleague Berian to share her screen.
Yes, good morning. So no,
sorry to interrupt. It's not in the presentation mode.
Okay, but this I'm not sure now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Let's try.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah,
Perfect.
you see it. Yeah.
Yes.
Good. So yes, what I will explain is that we developed an approach and about selecting policy instruments that we reviewed in our workshops per sector, in our sectoral workshops. And I'm going to explain how we selected these policy instruments and made policy sets for the future. So these policy sets, they were reviewed in terms of strengths and weaknesses in our workshops. And it is important that this was the focus of our workshop, while we also are going to do a survey. And there we will have more emphasis on which policies people prefer. But now we discussed more the strengths and weaknesses of these policies. So I want to explain how we selected these policies. So where did we look for these policies? That was done through a review of scientific articles and reports, but also stakeholder inputs from former workshops that we organized before the Implement workshop. So we looked at existing policies, but also identified policy gaps. And from there, this combination of information led to policy proposals. So our focus was much more on new policies that are not yet in place, so recommendations about possible policies, although there's a lot of discussion already on these policies going on, of course, but they have not been implemented. So that was really our focus. How did we select the policies? Well, that was really a challenge, because we have, of course, many policies for in different sectors, and they all come together. They're all there's a whole framework, of course, that there needs to be a coherence between policy instruments. So it's not that policies can just be introduced without being placed in a certain framework of policy logic. So we had to create some order there. So we decided that we needed some framework to prioritize the policies that we proposed. So we developed a policy set that was organized according to policy type. And our focus was more on the hard policy instruments, so direct regulation, like quotas, bans, thresholds, and also market-based instruments. What we also did, we also looked at the function of the policy instruments, and there we ordered them according to instruments that promote transition to a more circular and bio-based economy, and the ones that have an objective of limiting the resource use. Why did we look at that? Especially on the limiting of resource use, it was already mentioned by the former speakers. This is, of course, a very clear objective mentioned in the EU Circular Economy Action Plan. So decoupling economic growth from resource use, and also keeping resource consumption within the planetary boundaries and reduce its consumption footprint. So that is obvious why the resource use is important. And we also want to explain that from some scientific research that showed that if we introduce more higher recycling rate of our products, this does not necessarily go together with a decline in resource use in general. Actually, there could be a perverse effect from this, and that has been already proven in several scientific publications, that it could actually stimulate also at the same time an increase in resource use. And the other thing is that with the circular economy, we have an increased demand for biomass. That's the big biomass gap that people are talking about, and that is expected over the coming years. And this is strongly related to also greenhouse gas emissions. So what you see is that how we promote the use of residues as much as possible, but the more sectors are demanding biomass, the higher the chances are that we have to use the greenhouse gas savings are of course related to the residual and waste biomass streams, but the more we need for the biomass, the more it is likely that we are going to use virgin biomass, so cropped biomass, and that can have both advantages and disadvantages, but it is clear that it will be more challenging to do greenhouse gas mitigation for the use of these type of biomass sources. So then we have, going back to the policy set, so promote transition, which involves promote recycling and promote bio-based developments. And for the limiting of resource use, you could develop policies that reduce consumption or reallocate or limit the use of resources, including biomass. Then for the policy sets that we developed one for circularity and one for biomass and greenhouse gas reduction. And these sets, they were developed per sector. And these sectoral sets for textile, for construction, for chemicals and for bioplastics, because these are the focus sectors in our project, we developed specific set of policy instruments. And now in our next presentations, we will give an overview of the outcomes of the workshops discussing these policy sets. And for the policy sets, we of course developed options for policies. They are not already the final policies that we're going to recommend in the project. We're still elaborating them further in detail. I already mentioned that they are more the hard and binding type of policy instruments that we focused on. And we're not saying that other policy instruments are necessary. So like more soft policy instruments, informing people, or voluntary instruments. And still many details need to be specified for our policy, so we call them more policy archetypes. And we presented the policies not as standalone instruments, but more as a policy set. And now I will move to the sectoral presentations. I will do the sectoral presentation for the for the textile sector myself. I just have to switch presentation. Put it again in presentation mode. Yeah. So yes, for the sectoral workshop, the textile sector, it was a great workshop. We had very high participation. I think we had 80 people participating in the workshop, and a very active participants that were very active in filling our Miro board on the strengths and weaknesses of the policy instruments that we proposed. Well, one policy instrument was a quota system for recycled and bio-based fibers and textile products. Well, the strength that were indicated was that, yes, this is a complicated instrument. It will take a time before it can be effective in results, but on the long run, it will probably both be the most effective way to implement the transition, especially for the absolute reduction of resource use. It will be a good incentive also to make investments in recycling sector going, because that is still lagging behind. And it will also help to stimulate the creation of more traceability and certification in the textile sector, and it will help increase the production and value of recycled and non-fossil fibers. So because they're really need more support to enter at a larger scale in the market. But also many weaknesses were identified because people think it's difficult to meet the target for quota, because there is currently lack of scalable technologies for recycling and also bio-based products. There's lack of eco-design, lack of sustainable consumer behavior. And that is all fair, because this was, of course, not a standalone instrument that we are proposing. We are proposing it as a package. But for this instrument, people see these weaknesses. People also see that the recycling technologies and recycling chain is still in its infancy, and a wasted textile has a very low quality, which makes it very difficult currently for the recycling. And it can only work if there is proof that the selected feedstocks are, of course, compliant with the criteria of the quota. And there was also a very important comment made that people fear that there will be enormous scarcity on the market for sustainable materials. So it will be impossible to meet the quota. And it will lead to more bureaucracy and high control costs. So that is for the quota. If you go to the eco-design instrument that we proposed for mandatory durability, repairability, and recyclability standards, including for imports, we see the strength is that it will make a larger scale recycling of textiles happen, and also increase the use of recyclable textiles. But on the weaknesses, people see that the mandatory durability rules will be very hard to define, and monitoring it will come with high costs and increased bureaucracy. There's also a need for clear definitions of what is durable, recyclable, repairable, and people fear, and there are people that think that textile and garment production cannot be standardized, and therefore the definitions will be very challenging to be developed. Comments were made in that this instrument needs to be accompanied by proper guidelines on blending of different types of fibers, because this is really challenging the recyclability at this moment. And also the handling of textile waste is really scattered and different, very different over EU countries, which makes it complicated to collect enough textile waste of enough quality and of enough scale. And that should be addressed. And there is a responsibility on the consumer to change its behavior in consuming textiles. Then there is the instrument of subsidy. Well, everybody agreed really that innovation subsidy for textile reuse, recycling, and new bio-based fibers is a valuable instrument. So it will be helpful to make new products more competitive, penetrate the market. It will increase the sustainable production, of course, of fibers and textile products, and it will also attract more innovative companies to the EU market. And that is also really very relevant in the whole political climate that we have. But it cannot be a standalone policy instrument, and it is important that the support is temporary to create industries that become mature and that can operate alone on the market so that they're competitive. And it is expected that this support will actually also at the same time create resistance from fossil industries and major fashion companies that don't want to really have this support. We'll discuss about whether this is fair to only focus on these type of sectors. And then there's this instrument of the carbon tax combined with a green VAT for sustainable practices. So it's a stick and a carrot system. People are positive about that, but really think it will be challenging to apply this also to products that are imported to the EU. That is really important to address this. There was talk about that it would go against WTO rules. So that is really something that needs to be addressed. It will also, again, bring more innovative end-of-life technologies to the EU and support best practices. And it will face lots of resistance, but in the end, it will be the effective instrument to stimulate behavioral change. Again, this will, there's this market thing, the EU market. Maybe producers will move out to the outside the EU market. So there, the effectiveness will weaken because of this. Now I go fast. The last one instrument is the ban on destruction of unsold goods. Actually, this is a planned instrument already. Well, some people believe that it will indeed reduce overproduction, and it will also help to create lower consumption mentality. But there are also many people that think there will be a leakage effect. So the unsold textiles are moved outside the EU, and the effectiveness is debated. And what is an interesting comment, I think, is that we have to be aware that actually these unsold textiles may be used for recycling. So the recycling will focus on these type of textiles because they're still clean textiles, they're more easy to recycle, while actually the real textile waste will no longer be used in the recycling industry. So there might be a risk. So for time, I stop here and we can move to the next sectoral summary.
Thank you, Berian. Now we can move to the chemical sector outcomes. Lara, the floor is yours from DBFZ.
Okay, no, my micro is on. Thank you so much. I'll try to be as quick as possible, of course. The chemical sector, as Berian explained at the beginning, had two different policy sets. I'm going to start with the one for biomass. As you see in this policy set, we had both the direct regulation, market-based instruments, but we also discussed with stakeholders in our sectoral workshop about a mixed approach. However, you're going to see that, for example, the topic of innovation subsidies are in several of the type of policies. We have first, for the promoting transition, a quota. I cannot see very well my titles here.
If you remove the header to somewhere else on your screen, you would see it better. The zoom bar, if you move it to somewhere else, or make your screen a bit smaller.
Okay, let's see. Let's see. Okay, the quota for non-fossil feedstock shares in the chemical production. This is particular to an idea of starting an increasing quota for non-fossil feedstocks, and the stakeholders mentioned in that day that as one of the strengths that this could be very well utilized and start with small steps, particularly increasing 5%, 10% of the bio-based share and so on, so that to arrive to a total use of bio-based feedstocks. They also mention as strengths that the quota can be implemented in the legislation that is already implemented. And that was also the spirit of our policy sets recommendations. They mentioned some directives like the End-of-Life Vehicles Directive, the Eco Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, and others. And it was also mentioned that this could be a very effective instrument to be applied immediately and given the urgency that is being faced in the EU. As weakness, the implementation of the quota is seen as highly complex, in particular for small and medium companies. And this in particular because of separate targets for recycle, bio-based, and also carbon capture alternatives. As a comment, we receive for this specific quota that the bio-based alternatives to conventional fossil products need to be in place first, so that there needs to be already a development at technological level and the products already enoughly developed, or the technological process develop enough so that the quota really can be successful. Then we have on the following part, and we are talking still on the function of promoting the transition, but with a market-based instrument, the innovation subsidy. And this was suggested as an instrument to develop new products, but also to support the market penetration of these products that are not using fossil-based chemicals. As part of the strengths, it was mentioned by the stakeholders that there are already effective examples like the fossil plastic taxes in Spain, and that it has been shown already to promote alternative feedstocks and to stimulate the behavior of the companies. So that was a very interesting example shown there. As part of the weaknesses, we got that definitely this is not going to be, as is considered by some stakeholders, it's not going to be enough to include only an innovation subsidy for these type of products, but that something more like OPEX subsidies should be included as an addition. And also mentioned as weakness that subsidies are not sustainable. It was also mentioned in the textile sector, now as Varian mentioned, that the industry needs to stand on itself, and that's true, but we still think that it's something to begin with and to support the market penetration at this stage. Finally, on the comment sections, it was mentioned that the creation of cascade value chains will aid in the addressing of biomass availability question. That's generally true for several of the sectors, and that the green claim directives will be key in ensuring the transparency and trustworthiness of the eco-labels and claims. I will move swiftly to the next one. We're still speaking about our biomass and sustainability policy set, but now on the topic of limiting the resource use. So we suggest that sustainability criteria for biomass to be eligible to the quota, that our suggestion was something like an EU Renewable Material Directive, following the principles of the EU Renewable Energy Directive that is now for the bioenergy sector. We got as strengths comments that this will actually reduce the demand for new products, and in that sense support the sustainability criteria will support that the biomass will be more used for high product quality and extend the lifetime of products. We also got within our strengths comments that if this is well designed, the sustainability criteria will be well designed, will allow for better use of the biomass that is already in use and reduce the land use related GHG emissions. As
Laura,
weaknesses,
sorry to interrupt, but maybe you can just mention the main highlights because we are a bit running out of time. If you might,
okay,
you can. Yep.
okay, perfect. Okay, so maybe yeah, in particular, as weakness is in general, biomass is scarce and it's necessary to look at a more holistic approach, not only considering that biomass is going to be able to cover bioenergy and biochemicals or biomaterial demands. On the comments in particular, they supported, I think that comment supported that a renewable material directive will be something that will fill that gap that now is not being covered by RED regulation. I'm gonna continue to our next slide just to go very quickly. And then this final slide from the biomass policy set, we have only a few comments. The weakness is particular that an additional tax, we are speaking here about carbon tax, will increase product price and that will damage, let's say, or affect the competitiveness. And final, the carbon border adjustment mechanism should help to create international level playing field. Then we go very quickly on the second policy set that was related to circularity and toxicity. Again, here we have direct regulation and market-based instruments. Going to the promote transition section, we also have an innovation subsidy. And this in particular is an innovation subsidy to reduce or let's say to innovate in chemicals that have lower toxicity substances. It's seen as good for early adoption and is seen also as it's supporting a review of innovation and that it's mentioned that it's low risk. On the comments in particular, it was mentioned in general that this type of list, as you know, there's safer chemical ingredient lists and the REACH regulation, that these type of lists have to be, let's say, dynamic. And it's perhaps an extension on that will make available information about the attributes of the chemicals and also support type of certification like the cradle to cradle or the regional screening levels that it was an example from the United States could be a way to support this.
Okay.
And this is my last slide. And it's again on the limits for the chemicals. It was the limit of substance use, not like resources use. It's we propose there different type of instruments such as the threshold for key substances of concern, or for example, extending also the criteria of REACH regulation, as well as, for example, extending the SICP database for chemicals inhibiting circularity. What can I summarize here? Yeah, we didn't have any strengths, and in particular, it was also about like how to monitor this type of list, how to monitor that the hazardous content of the chemicals was really revised not only at the beginning but after it has been already combined into the production of subsequent products. And to finalize, we had also a suggestion about pollution tax on key substances of concern, as main weakness is tracking circularity and the toxicity, again, as mentioned. And yeah, that this can be very challenging and costly. I'm gonna stop there. Thank you.
Okay, we have a lot to say, I agree, but maybe for the sake of time, we will communicate again with all this material for all participants. So there we might create another way of communication. So I would love to move on with the plastic sector. Luana is already sharing. Okay, the floor is yours,
Yes.
Luana.
Good morning. So I will be very quick as possible because the time is running. So for the plastic sector, for the biomass, we had a combination of subsidies for the production of durable no-packaging plastic, innovation subsidies for new bio-based technologies, and then to limit the resources, we had sustainability criteria combined with the cap and also with the carbon tax. So we got a lot of weaknesses, I would say, for this fact sheet. In particular for the product subsidy for producer, the main concern was about the fact that bio-based carbon subsidies increases bureaucracy and then increases the cost for biopolymers even more. So it's a very, very big problem. And also universal subsidy for bioplastic technologies is also a problem if we limit this to durable for biopolymers. So not considering, for example, the advantages of a sustainable biodegradable alternative, for example. Then, regarding the sustainability criteria, we also found some weakness here. They said that basically there is already a lack of coherence in the policy framework in Europe, and this is very, very important to implement the sustainability eco-design criteria. And this one somehow is currently lacking. And also looking at the RED II criteria, they are very interesting. However, why only limiting them to the durable products? And regarding a carbon tax, we had a strength there. They said that basically it is a very important mechanism, but it needs to recognize the benefit of biogenic versus fossil carbon. Looking at the circularity policy set, we had for the promotion of the transition, a combination of a quota with the eco-design criteria and the public procurement, and also innovation subsidy to the market-based instrument. And then for limited resources use, we have a product ban and also a carbon price. And we see that also in this case, weaknesses for the quota, for all of them, basically, the major concern was the fact that there is a need for harmonizing the definitions. That is sometimes not the case. And also developing the criteria is a very good stimulus. However, can also take a long time to do this. So it's not implementable in the next decade. And regarding the innovation subsidy for the new technologies, here there was a good strength. So this one would be a very good measure. Regarding limiting of the resources, the ban for the single-use plastic, we see that the ban is very important. However, it's very also important to have behavioral change education measures. And the weaknesses here is that basically this won't consider alternative. That's very important. And also, this can also be not accepted by the WTO because all restriction for extra-European countries and also consumers need to be agreeing to this. And regarding the carbon price for the use of fossil feedstock, the weakness is that using carbon price for single-use plastic unintentionally versus fossil alternative can create new barriers. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Luana. Very nicely summarized up, let's say. So I will move to the construction sector results with Toby. But again, please remember that we will share all this material with you. And if you see something that is that you think you can contribute more, please feel free to reach us anytime. So, Toby, the floor is yours. We don't hear you yet.
I have to mute myself. So very quickly, the results from the construction sector workshop. So we also had a policy set focusing on both circularity as well as biomass. So for the promotion of transition, so eco-design criteria, some of the strengths highlighted here were when a holistic design approach is implemented, so looking more than just the material itself and focusing on all aspects of the sustainability of construction, so both environment, economy, as well as society can really create a more sustainable construction future. But there are still some weaknesses specifically related, for example, to some of the skill gaps within the workforce. So the people who are needed to implement these new innovations, there still are some, let's say, issues and barriers here for the full implementation. And then some of the comments as well is that we also need to look at specifically at the end of life strategies for the building materials we use. So how can we reuse them, and as well as how can we turn, let's say, waste into valuable new products. Then for the quota and targets, using bio-based materials and prioritizing them in the use of new public buildings and projects or public procurement can really help strengthen, let's say, their implementation, and can also help with supporting, let's say, more local materials and local bioeconomies. Now, some weaknesses were still highlighted as well, specifically during the workshop, related to some of the regulations and standards that are still in place in the construction sector, which are not always an advantage for bio-based solutions. Specifically, gaps in fire safety, acoustic norms were mentioned, as well as that biogenic carbon in LCAs for bio-based materials isn't always fully or benefited. And this is also reflected in the comments, where the unique, let's say, the unique features of bio-based materials aren't always able to be fully optimized with the current standards. So a new unique set of standards could really help, as well as that there's maybe a more need to shift, more need for economic incentives that favor sustainable alternatives, such as bio-based materials, over the current fossil-based options. Then in terms of subsidies, they could, for example, be used for real-world demonstrations. So let's say demo sites where these bio-based solutions are implemented, both in new buildings, but also still focusing on renovation. And as well as that these subsidies could also be used to, let's say, address the gaps in skill gaps that certain construction companies still have. So essentially asserting that the tools and training for people within the construction sector are there. However, of course, we do need to make sure that also the smaller construction companies, which are the majority of construction companies, are like small to micro companies, that they are still able to access these innovation subsidies, let's say. And then from the comments, that also investing in the circular infrastructure is needed. So the full life cycle and the full, let's say, from beginning to end of buildings is still very important, as well as focusing on repairability, as well as disassembly of buildings, as well as, once again, highlighting the specific benefits or the unique benefits of bio-based solutions is still important. Then on the limiting of the resource use, so sustainability criteria, once again integrating them in dynamic lifecycle buildings can really be an important part of these sustainability criteria set up for construction materials. And from the comments, that there is still currently, let's say, a reluctance to use bio-based materials, as well as that there's also no real, let's say, obligations or mandates that essentially push for their use. So these are still some, let's say, lacking issues, as well as that the current, let's say, bioenergy subsidies also aren't always ideal for biomass ending up in construction materials, as that now these subsidies still are to advantage for bioenergy itself. And the importance of implementing these cascading principles are also very important, and making sure that they're also coherent across all the member states in, for example, the European Union. Then on a limiting resource, then on the carbon taxes and carbon credits or subsidies as well. Once again, here, I want to comment on the weakness is that the bioenergy, carbon capturing and storage could still, once again, sort of result in an increase in biomass going to energy rather than, let's say, bio-based materials, which have a longer lifetime technically. So once again, here it's important that we set up good cascading principles to ensure that we are responsible with our biomass. And also that, of course, when we talk about carbon storage in building materials, that this is a risk of adding a lot of, say, bureaucratic complexity. And then one comment on material tax, for example, that also when we look at taxing virgin material use, that we do have to be careful that because wood is considered still a virgin material, that this doesn't increase the price of wood-based products.
Thank you, Toby. So now I just want to mention that we are going to consider all the comments that you put in the chat, but we also want to introduce our monitoring tool and the case study results. But if you have any availability of time after the meeting ends, literally, we would be happy to stay and discuss further your aspects that you put in the chat. So now I will leave the floor to Marco for the introduction of monitoring framework.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Augusta. You can see my screen, right? Okay, good. So let's go on it. So within Sustrack, we are also doing this work, providing a monitoring framework that we hope might be of good inspiration for the bioeconomy monitoring framework promoted by the European Union. In this, within our approach, we are trying to address, first of all, the access to existing resources. So we have a catalog or a collection of existing indicator data that can be used to monitor the bioeconomy. Then on the other end, we're trying to operationalize the connection between what indicator are measuring and the SDGs. And finally, we are also trying to give easy to grasp understanding on the good management of bioeconomy transition through a selection of key indicator across key management area. But let's see this in more detail. So first of all, we collected more than 300 indicators spanning different topics. The user can access them through different filters, being this, for example, implementation level. So whether indicator might be available at the regional, national, or European aggregated level. Then they can access them based on a sustainability dimension, whether they belong to environmental, economic, social, or even circularity. And finally, they can navigate them through SDGs. So there are specific SDG filter, and they will that will retrieve indicator aligned with those SDGs. And finally, related to the societal objective that you perhaps already know from the European Union bioeconomy strategy. Once that, for example, user identify a relevant set of indicators, this can be downloaded together with complementary info. Regarding the connection between SDGs, we are creating this kind of hot maps in which the indicator and the SDGs relation, trade-off or synergy are displayed in parallel. So basically, the idea is to provide this snapshot of trade-off and synergy between indicator and SDGs, and all this synergy or trade-off are documented through academic reference, so that they also can support further understanding and scientific work. Regarding the good management for the transition to a circular bioeconomy, we classified a key indicator, and by key indicator I mean those indicators that are reflecting good management, so are not kind of difficult indicator to understand or to interpret, but those indicators whose variation reflect in a unequivocal way good performance. So we did through a selection of the indicator, and we separate them, classified them into 4 key areas. This is the environmental impact of the bio-based economy, sustainable management of resources, contribution of bio-based and renewable resources to our system, and finally, the socioeconomic side of the bioeconomy, so competitiveness and jobs, which this, I would say, key strategic area reflect to some extent the societal objective. And here an example, for example, for the environmental performance. So the user can select a different country or one country with different years to see the progress on this indicator along the time, or compare performance between country to identify potential hotspot. We did particular effort to normalize and harmonize indicators so that country performance can be compare with each other in a consistent way. For example, it might be tricky to compare greenhouse gas removal from the land sector because its own country has endowment or target. And we propose some normalization method in order to give around or to address this limitation. Now, unfortunately, I cannot go for time reason. I cannot go to a practical example of the tool, but you can reach it at the Sustrack website within the monitoring system bottom. And you will also find an additional one inviting you to let us know your experience as a user, or if you have any kind of recommendation that we can take in on for a further improvement of the tool. So please check it out and let us know what are your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. And now we will move to the case study results from Wageningen. I think Iris will be presenting. Marco, if you could start. Yes, perfect, perfect.
Yeah, you can see it, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes, so I'm Iris Gürsa from Wageningen Research, and I'll be shortly presenting you on our case study assessment. So this was part of the work package 3 of Sustrack project. Let's see, yeah. So we started with the selection of the case studies, and for that defined the selection criteria and made a long list of potential case studies. And by following this multi-criteria assessment, we came up with these 10 case studies, and later on another one was added on cellulose acetate. So for the construction sector, we have the cross-laminated timber, biochar as an additive in concrete, hemp insulation, and for textiles, the recycled carded wool, man-made cellulosic fibers, master sheep wool. And from chemicals, biomethanol from waste, bio-MEG, and from plastics, polylactic acid, and propylene, and the addition of the cellulose acetate case study. So as part of our first deliverable, we made an analysis and made fact sheets on these case studies. Then we went on to further assessment of these case studies, and this is kind of the structure of the report that we made. So we provide an information about the value chain process, baseline market, then information about the relevant stakeholder identification and their mapping in terms of power interest. Then a section on policies of relevance, also provide information whether they are stimulating or impeding the development of that case study. Fourthly, on the most relevant indicators. So this we did by reviewing the Sustrack monitoring tool. Each case study owner identified the most relevant indicators from this tool and made an assessment from literature and stakeholder engagements to provide sustainability performance analysis on the case study. Fifth one is about reporting on outcomes from the insights from stakeholder engagement. So this was based mostly on our design sectoral workshops as well as direct engagement with targeted stakeholders through interviews. And finally, we reported on the key learnings. So this includes like the key challenges, recommended actions, and further research needs. So just to give an impression, I won't go into this slide, but for each sector and also for each case study, we also defined certain challenges and examples of good practices and categorized them under 3 dimensions as policy, sustainability, and market. So to highlight some key findings, so we see that one of the main challenges is the non-level playing field between mature established fossil-based products with the emerging bio-based products. So in terms of cost competitiveness, insufficient regulatory support directly for bio-based products that hinders their market entry and growth. Also, lack of data on sustainable performance, so more information is needed to showcase that the bio-based alternatives are performing better than the fossil-based ones. Some other things are on biogenic carbon accounting, high perceived risk leading to difficulty in securing investments, and therefore further R&D support is required to foster innovation, and some policy support instruments were defined also from the case study assessments, as well as supporting the circular economy, such as effective recycling strategies, as well as an after-use economy to promote the use of secondary resources in the production of bio-based products. So the next steps would be to derive overall recommendations and good practices from these case studies and make them summarized per sector. And we will also utilize these findings in our upcoming deploy conferences. So this was shortly from my side. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Iris. And even if we didn't have time to go through all this material, you will have the description of all these aspects also in the presentations. So we will share all the outputs. And as you can imagine, we have a lot to say. We have been working hard on these projects during the last 2 years. So we created a lot of output. So the ones that are already published are available on our website. So please feel free to jump in and propose your suggestions, recommendations, which are highly valued. And for the ones who have the time availability, I would like to pick up a couple of comments, questions here, especially that I see there is an interaction between Giulio, if I'm right, and Georg and Stefan. For starters, if any of them would like to take the floor for a couple of minutes, we would be happy to hear from them. But for the ones who need to leave, I would love to thank first before opening another session. So it was very nice having you on board and an opportunity to share our findings, especially for our keynote speakers as well, that we highly appreciated their contribution, their time, dedication for this meeting. So let me see what is already in the chat. So for the plastics and chemical sector, there was a comment that I'm trying to find. Okay, so maybe the first one was the implementation complexities that Giulio raised. So the presentations that we made look complicated because the problem is complicated by definition. So the policy related action, in fact, that we have seen a lot of effort has been put in research, innovation, and the policy making side. I don't know if you would like to say a couple of words on that. I see Stefan raised his hand, please.
Oh, thanks, Gulsha. My observation here in this context is definitely we have to a scientific approach to all of this, and the communities which are all there in this context. I observe a lot of people on the scientific level, and we are on the level of speaking about scientific documentation, literature read. And unfortunately, I observe, I'm a bit a senior person, I observe that the deep knowledge of the production chains behind, of the natural processes behind, is not so common anymore, especially here in Europe. We delegated a lot around the world. I'm in textile business, and we delegated a lot around the world. And the knowledge here is scarce. The contributions by stakeholders really in the daily business of how to handle those things is limited because they have no resources available. And this has the big risk of making complicated things which are valid, which are true, but getting a challenge to be realized. This is my point of view.
Yeah, thanks for your contribution. And anybody wants to comment on that, or? Yeah, Georg, please.
Yes, so first of all, let me say that like you have done excellent work over the last 2 years, and also like being part of the case study owner, it was an honor to working with you. Very thorough, very diligent. And the two comments that I had placed in the chat were mainly just as food for thought also for the policies, because I know that you're using a systemic approach, which is good because you look at the system, you look at the source units and how they move through the production system. I don't know the extent to which this is actually represented in the model itself, but from a qualitative level, I think this is very valuable because you can see how specific policies affect specific factors and then amplify through the system. And I think especially in this context, it's very important because if we look at raw materials as inputs to the production construction sector and raw materials as inputs to the chemical sector, inputs to the plastic sector, the type of policy that you use for the downstream will also amplify challenges that are already existing in the upstream. So from that point of view, I think also what Stefan said with regard to we lose actually the knowledge about the supply chains. The systemic approach helps a lot. And the comments placed in the chat are just to kind of give some food for thought for writing the policy piece. So thank you very much for the presentations today.
Thank you for your contribution and appreciation at the same time. So I don't know if anyone wants to say a couple of words, sharing their views, experiences. Okay, I'm very happy that there are still people in the room after 8 minutes. I know that this is the lunch break time for most of us, and it's very appreciated that you contributed to all the workshops that I'm seeing very names that are here with us. I don't know how many times. So I would like to thank you all in the name of all consortium members, and I would like to let you know that we will be updating you with the progress of our project as we always do, and we will get back to you with your contribution suggestions in the due course before we finish and create a solid list of recommendations, hopefully, in order to make this transition, steer the transition in the right way that we believe. So again, thank you very much for your contribution and joining us today, and have a nice day ahead.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.